And welcome back to Straight Talk. So, we went to a break, and a lot of things happened during that break. There was a band meeting last night.
There was a band meeting last night, but was it a band meeting? That's the big question. It's not a community meeting in the usual sense at all. Okay, and I have questions about that because what it was set up to be only one topic: get through the issue of land allotments, bang, 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 and then get to the issue solely about membership, and if there was time at the end, a little bit of open discussion, which is basically what happened.
Was it membership or was it the evictions?
Good point. Really, the only question had to do with did people agree or disagree with the evictions, and it wasn't about entitlement. That's the way they framed the issue to be discussed.
You know, I'd like maybe I'll ask a question. Maybe I shouldn't ask a question, but the question that I have is, what was the motivation behind doing it that way? You know, every time that, in history that I've seen, is that any time that there's a contentious issue in this community, there's always a strategy somewhere behind it. And I'm talking about the strategy maybe with the Mohawk Council, because they're the ones that are directing the meeting. And what I mean by that is if you looked in the past when they were dealing with a big issue, a lot of times they put it into a smaller location because they would get less people. Maybe they don't do it on purpose, but it happens that way. This time, all of a sudden, now it's changed to different tables. And is it because that it's contentious and they were afraid of confrontation, or they tried to downplay it a bit? Maybe, I don't know, maybe you have a little more insight about stuff like that.
Well, when you look at the overall picture, I think council is stymied right now. They began a project and or a direction that they hope the community would go into, and they're more or less floundering with the issue. And how to pull a Pontius Pilate on it is to call a meeting. And regardless of how the meeting goes, they've sort of stepped back from the original purpose of the issue and handed out to the public, which is polarized, so to speak, very heavily in their own ways and their own beliefs. So as a result of that, the solution will not be found in this way that they've conducted the discussions. We have to go basically back to some of the, I guess, historical issues that have guided our community up to this point in time.
And I guess that's something that we have to look at in long term. But in I guess the immediate time now is that. I wasn't there, so what was the feel of the room? I mean, Ross, you were there, but...
Well, to some extent, it's confusion. It's confusion because when you walk in, you go say, well, this is a summer meeting, say, or spring meeting. And you actually don't expect to sit wherever and it's going to be this agenda.
But they had somebody with membership checking?
They had, well, they didn't check my papers. Okay.
They didn't take your blood?
No, but
No blood
look
test?
at we have to clarify what the heck we're talking about. You use the term blood.
Yeah.
Well, it's about blood. It's no, I'm not shooting
Yeah.
you down. I'm just saying, what are we talking? We're talking about these band numbers. Even if we say it's Mohawk Registry, it's still a band number. It's a certain level of band number. So what are we talking about? Anyways, in terms of the feel of the room, obviously there was two viewpoints there about the issue of evictions. One is we're against it, and the other one is we're for it. And never the twain did meet. Okay? And if that was the goal, then well, stalemate is stalemate is stalemate. Mind you, when it came down to it, there's no such thing as consensus in this. We're not going to come around and say, well, we're going to agree that this is the way we ought to go.
We'll agree to disagree.
Now, my sense, back to the point, you asked me a question about my sense. My sense is that, ultimately, Billy's kind of hinted at that without putting words in his mouth, just my own observations and I did talk to a couple of counselors there last night. I'm talking to one, and when this whole thing was initiated, it's like there was no plan.
One of the things that you brought up was that you went into a meeting, a public meeting or whatever label that it had, and you found yourself confused on what the issue. There was no goal that people could be striving for to bring a united point or at least a concept of solving issue. And the thing is that the more things change, the more they stay the same. I didn't go to the meeting, and neither did you go to the meeting. But it actually, you didn't go either, so that makes you, more or less going to the meeting. But we can't say we were confused when we were there. But the thing is that what's occurring at some point in time or at that time is that the whole issue is that, maybe I could use the term organized confusion.
Well, you say organized, and that's where it's like me. The issue is what direction are we going in terms of this notion? Is it membership? Is it this? Is it that? Okay, I'm just talking about the layout of the land was confusion. Was it controlled confusion? I would tend to veer to that. I would tend to say that you have there's a term, manufacture of consent. It becomes a legitimate question to ask: is this process that is being used part of that? You have leads at the tables. You have a facilitator for the table, and then I think there are key people who are chosen to speak. In other words, the table I sat next to but was not a part of, because I chose not to be a part of it because I have issues with the process. It has not to do with membership or justice, or it's that process that's being used.
But that's the thing, though, is why should you be forced to be in a situation like that? You know what? Then you know what? If that's the case, it's really. Why don't we just go back in front of the church and have somebody stand on top, and we'll have a meeting there. You have a drum, don't you?
Yeah.
Well, again, why not?
Yeah.
But one of the things
Really more
that
people
I
up.
wanted to just catch, because you just brought it up, because one of the things that to me was disturbing profoundly was that right from the beginning, it was stated. Somebody asked the question, well, if I'm not part of the group, do I still have a chance to have my say? And basically, you had the Grand Chief and one of the other chiefs, Gus Sky, at the table that I was seated next to, basically saying that, if you don't participate, then you really don't have a voice.
That's ridiculous.
Participate. Okay, this is what this is geared to get you. So to me, it's like join this process seemed to be the most important
Yeah, you're
thing.
being forced to do something that you shouldn't have to be forced to do.
And that's difficult to take. And that's to me, it was a divisive kind of a statement to make, whether it was intended to be that way or not.
But most people, I guess, sat at the tables. How many people actually were sitting on the outskirts say that?
No,
go to hell?
basically, well, no, the majority of people sat at tables and they chose to sit at tables, and they did come really actually to participate in that. They wanted their side of it heard. They wanted to say their side to be the one that predominated. In the end, if you took, it came down to show of hands. Okay, this is not consensus. Okay. Now, furthermore, it was said, well, this was just to get people an idea, since not a lot of people were coming out to the previous ILCC meetings, for community decision making. So, and you've heard Mike DeLille has talked about it, on Chiefs Uncut, so on and so forth. They need to see more people, so they wanted that. Okay, but they're saying, well, it's just sort of like to go give people an idea, but we're taking these notes and we'll bring it to this in September. It's a little,
And it's like prolong.
but it's loaded.
Yeah.
Well, not necessarily, I guess, that we've reached a level now that we follow the process of trying to come to an agreement or an understanding according to Robinson's rules, that you take this issue and you divide it amongst 3 tables or 4 tables, facilitators, taking notes on the road, making a recap of it, presenting it back to the overall crowd in a plenary, and then afterwards you condense that again and say, well, this is what we got out of it, And so maybe it's a case of how many words can you put into that reply, you know, that maybe touches on the issues that were the topic of that night, but not bringing it to any kind of conclusion.
With that, we're going to take a break, and we'll be back right after these messages.